Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today, we're taking a close look at Novavax, a global biotech company focused on innovative vaccines.
That's right. And for sources, we've got a company analysis, a pretty detailed due diligence report from 2025, and a good look at their financials, partnerships, market outlook, the whole picture, really.
Okay, great. So our goal here is to, cut through the noise and figure out what's most important for you to understand about Novavax right now. Key insights. Let's maybe start with the basics. What Novavax actually does in their main product.
Sure. So they specialize in developing and commercializing vaccines for infectious diseases. They use their own tech, protein-based nanoparticles, and something called the Matrix M adjuvant.
All right, the adjuvant boosts the immune response.
Exactly. And their most well-known product is, of course, their COVID-19 vaccine, NVAX. It's been authorized in quite a few countries.
And they're not just COVID, right? Other vaccines in the pipeline and partnerships.
Yes, absolutely. They have other vaccines in development and some really key partnerships. Think companies like Takeda and Sanofi. Those are crucial. What's quite compelling, I think, is that foundational technology itself. This protein-based approach, especially with the Matrix M adjuvant, it's well respected. It sets them apart from the mRNA players.
So it's a different mechanism. The protein is like a target for the immune system, and the adjuvant rings the alarm bell louder.
That's a good way to put it, yeah. Boosts the response to that specific piece of the virus.
Okay, let's shift gears to the financials. Recent performance. What are the projections for 2025?
For 2025, they're projecting adjusted total revenue somewhere between $975 million and $1.025 billion.
In Q1 of 2025, I heard that was pretty significant.
It really was. A huge jump in total revenue. We're talking $667 million compared to just $94 million in Q1 of 2024.
Wow, okay. That's a massive increase. What drove that?
Well, and this is important for you to know, a very large portion of that, $603 million, actually came from terminated agreements with Canada and New Zealand.
Wow. So a big one-time boost, essentially.
Pretty much. Which, while great for that quarter's numbers, it does raise that question. How sustainable is that level of revenue going forward? It really pushes focus onto their ongoing partnerships and pipeline for growth.
Right, because looking at the full year 2024, revenue was $682 million, which was actually down from $984 million in 2023. So there's definitely some fluctuation there.
That volatility really underscores how specific events like those terminations can sway the numbers. Looking ahead, analysts expect EPS for the next quarter to be around $0.19.
And net income. Q1 2025 saw a profit.
Yes, a net income of $519 million in Q1 2025. That's a huge swing from the net loss of $148 million they posted in Q1 2024.
Okay, so profitable in the quarter, but what about the overall picture, PE ratio?
Still negative, actually. Currently sitting at meta 5.09. So despite that profitable quarter, it indicates overall accumulated earnings are still in the red. It tells you the journey to consistent profitability isn't quite finished.
Got it. And the debt-to-equity ratio?
Also negative at negative 0.37, which, suggests liabilities are greater than equity. That's a metric investors always keep an eye on.
Okay, so a mixed financial picture. Let's talk strengths and maybe some red flags. Strength one seems to be their core tech.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That protein-based nanoparticle platform and the Matrix M adjuvant, they're proven and well-regarded. That's a solid foundation. Gives credibility.
And they're trying to diversify beyond just COVID, which seems like a good strategic move. Less reliance on one product.
Exactly. Diversification is key for long-term stability, especially in a market that changes as fast as vaccines can. We've also seen some positive news, like improving financial terms with their partner Takeda.
That sounds positive. Now, on the flip side, potential risks. Dependence on those partnerships.
That's definitely a point of attention. Relying on partners for revenue and growth, well, it introduces a risk if those collaborations falter or a partner's priorities change. Their success is partly tied to others.
And the competition. Biotech is famously tough.
Extremely competitive, especially the vaccine space. You've got major players, lots of innovation. Maintaining and growing market share is a constant challenge.
Let's dig into those partnerships and strategic moves a bit more. You mentioned Takeda in Japan strengthening that tie-up.
Yes, they've improved the financial terms there. That's significant for their presence in the Japanese market.
And the Sanofi partnership.
Yep.
Optimizing that seems key. Talk about milestones and royalties.
Right. The Sanofi collaboration is really crucial. They're looking at potential milestones, royalties from new combo vaccines. Sanofi has this huge commercial infrastructure,
So Novavax can leverage Sanofi's reach.
Precisely. And as part of that, Novavax is actually transitioning the commercial side of Nuvaxovid to Sanofi in some markets.
Letting Sanofi handle sales and distribution in those places.
Kind of. It lets Novavax focus more on R&D and manufacturing while Sanofi uses its established networks. They also just secured a $50 million milestone payment under that Sanofi deal.
Okay, $50 million. And they sold a facility too.
They did. Sold their Czech Republic facility to Novo Nordisk. That's expected to save them around $80 million a year.
So cost-saving, streamlining operations.
Seems to be the goal, boosting financial efficiency. Now, shifting to the pipeline and regulatory updates, this is where it gets really interesting for future market access.
FDA feedback.
Yeah, they got feedback suggesting a potential path to approval for their COVID vaccine, but it's contingent on them aligning with the FDA on study parameters for post-marketing commitments.
Okay, so not a guaranteed green light, but a clearer roadmap, maybe.
Exactly, a roadmap, but they still need to successfully navigate it. Those post-marketing commitments are key. And just so you understand, the learner post-marketing commitments usually mean studies they have to do after potential approval to keep monitoring safety and effectiveness out in the real world.
Makes sense. There was also a study, SHIELD Utah, something about fewer side effects.
Yes, that study indicated Nuvaxovid led to fewer and less severe reactogenicity symptoms, things like fever, fatigue compared to an mRNA vaccine. That could be a really important differentiator.
Better tolerability could be a selling point.
It really could, especially for people maybe hesitant about mRNA vaccines due to side effect concerns. In a market where safety perception is so critical, is that maybe a major untapped opportunity for them? Makes you wonder.
Good question. Now, the competitive landscape. We mentioned the big players.
Right. Your main competitors are Pfizer, Moderna, BioNTech, giants in the field, huge resources, established market share.
Novavax's share is smaller,
Yeah.
but growing through these partnerships.
That partnership strategy is really their main lever for trying to expand their footprint against those big competitors.
And their tech being different protein-based versus mRNA,
Yeah.
that's their angle.
It's a distinct approach, yes. It might appeal to a specific segment of the market looking for non-mRNA options. Gives them a potential niche.
Okay, finally, market sentiment and the outlook. Analyst views.
Well, according to Guru Focus estimates, the sentiment suggests a potential downside, actually, about 2.53% from the current price, so a bit of caution there from analysts.
Interesting. Despite the recent stock price jump, that jump was likely tied to the Q1 revenue surge and the partnership news we discussed.
Very likely. Positive news on financials and collaborations often moves biotech stocks, as you know.
So what are the upcoming things to watch? Catalysts.
Future earnings reports will be key, obviously,
Yeah.
and any potential new product launches or major regulatory milestones.
And the risks to keep in mind.
Regulatory changes are always a factor, and just broader market conditions affecting the biotech sector as a whole. Those external factors can have a big impact. It really is a complex interplay, isn't it? You've got this strong technology, these strategic alliances they're building, but then these intense competitive pressures. It's a fascinating situation to watch unfold.
So wrapping this up, what does it all mean for you, the learner? Novavax. Well, it presents a complicated picture, doesn't it? You have this company with genuinely promising technology, a huge revenue jump recently, but it's balanced against that reliance on partners and some really tough competition.
Absolutely. And the developments around the FDA pathway and that big Sanofi collaboration, those are probably the critical areas to watch closely for clues about future performance.
Which really brings up an important question for you to think about.
Yeah.
How do you weigh that potential, the unique tech, the recent financial upswing against the inherent risks, the biotech volatility, the dependence on these partnerships?
It's not a simple calculation. For a deeper exploration, we'd certainly encourage you to look into Novavax's official financial reports, their SEC filings. Get the details straight from the source.
Definitely. And if you found this discussion informative today, please do subscribe, like, and comment. We appreciate the feedback.